Today we're gonna look into some more GTA hot takes, and trust me, this is gonna be interesting. Let's start. First one. Stories were better in older GTA games. Man, this is a take that pops up a lot in the GTA community, and honestly, I can see where people are coming from with this one. Looking at games like GTA San Andreas, Vice City, and GTA 3, they did have some incredibly memorable storylines. CJ's journey from the streets to taking on corrupt cops and dealing with family betrayal was genuinely compelling stuff. Tommy Vercetti's rise to power in Vice City's neon-soaked 80s setting was pure movie magic. These stories were straightforward but hit hard. They knew exactly what they wanted to be. Gritty crime dramas with a dash of that classic GTA satire. But here's where I gotta push back a bit. GTA 4 came through with Niko Bellic's story, which was probably the most mature and well-written narrative Rockstar had done at that point. Then GTA 5 brought us that three-protagonist structure with Michael, Franklin, and Trevor, which was pretty innovative and let them tell a more complex story from multiple angles. The writing and character development in these newer games is technically more sophisticated, even if they might not hit the same nostalgic sweet spot as the classics. I'd rate this take a 6 out of 10 on the hot take scale. It's not exactly scorching because it's pretty common in the community, but it's also not completely cold since there's some real debate here. I think this take is more about nostalgia than actual story quality. Those old games had amazing stories for their time, but the newer ones are actually more complex and well-crafted, even if they might not feel as pure or straightforward as the classics. The thing is, those older stories might feel better because they were simpler and more focused. Plus, we probably experienced them when gaming was newer to us. It's like how the first album you hear from your favorite band always hits different, you know what I mean? Next, Chinatown Wars is understood. Calling Chinatown Wars underrated? Let's break this one down, because this is actually one of the most accurate, underrated claims I've heard in gaming. Chinatown Wars was straight up innovative but got overlooked mainly because it dropped on the Nintendo DS and PSP. The game brought back the classic top-down view from the original GTAs, but modernized it in really clever ways. That touchscreen drug-dealing minigame was low-key genius. You had to actually manage your inventory, watch market prices, and make smart decisions about when to buy and sell. It was basically a crime economy simulator within GTA, something we haven't really seen since. The game also went hard with its art style. Instead of trying to copy the 3D games and ending up with something that looked awkward on handheld, they went with this dope cel-shaded look that still holds up today. It's like they took inspiration from comic books and made something that perfectly fit the platform. Story-wise, following Huang Li's revenge plot in Liberty City was actually pretty solid. It wasn't trying to be as epic as GTA 4, which came out around the same time, but it knew exactly what it wanted to be. A tight, focused narrative that worked perfectly for portable gaming sessions. I'd rate this take an 8 of 10. It's definitely hot, because most people either forgot about this game or never played it, but it's also straight facts. When people talk about the best GTA games, Chinatown Wars rarely gets mentioned, and that's a shame, because it was doing some really unique stuff that even the mainline games haven't matched. The only reason this isn't a perfect hot take score is because among people who've actually played it, there's usually a lot of love for it. It's less underrated in terms of quality and more underplayed because of its platform. Real ones know this game was something special. Next, GTA Online ruined GTA. First up, I totally get where this frustration comes from. It's been over a decade since GTA 5 dropped, and we're just now getting close to GTA 4. That's the longest gap between main GTA games ever, and a lot of people blame GTA Online for this. When you see Rockstar pumping out constant updates for online while single-player fans are left hanging, it's pretty easy to feel salty about it. Then there's the whole shark card situation. GTA Online's economy is built around grinding or paying real money for in-game cash, and let's be real. Some of those prices for cars and properties are wild. When you see a new supercar drop that costs like $3 million in-game dollars, it can feel like the game is pushing you towards opening your real wallet. But here's where we need to zoom out a bit. GTA Online has actually brought some pretty sick innovations to the series. The heists? Those were groundbreaking when they first dropped. The way they require actual coordination and teamwork took GTA's mission structure to a whole new level. Some of those heist setups and finales are straight-up movie material when you pull them off with your crew. The content variety is also pretty nuts when you think about it. You can run a nightclub, manage a motorcycle club, be a CEO, run missions as a VIP, race in tons of different modes, play tennis, golf, or just mess around and free roam with your friends. That's a level of freedom and variety that old GTA games never had. Also, let's talk about that money Rockstar made from online. Yeah, it probably delayed GTA 6, but it also means they've had mad resources to pour into development. All that shark card money likely means they can take their time and make something truly next level. Plus, online has been a testing ground for features we might see in 6. Stuff like properties, businesses, and more complex multiplayer mechanics. Something people often overlook is that GTA Online has actually evolved into a pretty decent game over the years. Remember how bare bones it was at launch? Now you've got all these different careers, properties, and ways to play. The recent updates have even made it more friendly to solo players who don't want to deal with griefers in public lobbies. But, and this is a big but, the take isn't completely wrong either. The focus on online has definitely changed Rockstar's priorities. We never got single-player DLC for GTA 5, which still stings when you remember how awesome episodes from Liberty City was for GTA 4. The gaming industry has definitely noticed GTA Online's success too, which has probably influenced other developers to focus more on multiplayer monetization. I'd rate this hot take a 5 out of 10. It's not really that hot anymore because it's such a common opinion, but it's also not entirely fair. GTA Online didn't ruin GTA, it changed it. Whether that change is good or bad probably depends on what you want from the series. If you're all about single-player storytelling, yeah, the online focus probably feels like a downgrade. But if you enjoy hanging with friends in a massive sandbox, online has offered something pretty unique. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. GTA Online has both helped and hurt the franchise in different ways. It's brought new ideas and resources to the table, but it's also shifted focus away from what made many fans fall in love with the series in the first place. Here's hoping GTA 6 finds a way to balance both sides of the coin. Next hot take: Definitive Edition's games are not that bad. First, let's talk about the elephant in the room. That launch was rough, like, really rough. We had weird character models that looked like they came from a mobile game, rain effects that made it impossible to see anything, and bugs that made some missions straight up harder than they needed to be. The internet had a field day with screenshots of characters looking like they belonged in a knockoff mobile game. And Definitive Edition became almost like a meme for how not to do a remaster. But the games have actually come a long way since launch. Rockstar and Grove Street Games dropped multiple patches that fixed a lot of the major issues. The rain doesn't look like static anymore, many of the worst character models have been improved, and a bunch of those game-breaking bugs got squashed. It's kind of wild how the internet sort of moved on and didn't really notice these improvements. There's also some genuinely good stuff in these remasters that often gets overlooked. The updated controls make the games feel way more modern. Having GTA 5-style gunplay and car handling in San Andreas is actually pretty sweet. The GPS system is a huge quality of life improvement too. Remember trying to navigate around Liberty City in GTA 3 with just the tiny map? The updated mini-map and waypoint system makes these games so much more playable for modern audiences. The lighting engine is another thing that doesn't get enough credit. When it works right, which is most of the time now, it actually makes these cities look pretty gorgeous. Vice City especially benefits from this. Those neon lights hitting wet streets at night can look absolutely stunning. The increased draw distance also makes the world feel bigger and more alive, even if it sometimes breaks the original game's intentional fog effects. But let's keep it real. There are still valid criticisms. Some of the artistic choices are questionable, like how they handled certain character models or building textures. The games still don't run as smoothly as they should on modern hardware, and there are still some bugs floating around. The price point at launch was also pretty steep for what you got. But then the debate comes: what makes a good remaster? Should it be totally faithful to the original, or try to modernize things? The Definitive Edition tried to do both, and maybe that's why it caught so much heat. It changed enough to upset purists, but didn't change enough to feel truly modern. I'd rate this a solid 7 out of 10 on the hot take scale because defending these games still gets you some serious side-eye in the GTA community. But there's actually some truth here. These games aren't the train wreck they were at launch anymore, and there's genuine improvements that make the originals more accessible to modern players. The biggest issue isn't really the games themselves anymore. It's the first impressions. Gaming communities have long memories, and that disastrous launch is still what most people think of when they hear Definitive Edition. It's kind of like how Cyberpunk 2077 is actually pretty solid now, but a lot of people still think of it as that buggy mess from launch. If you're coming to these games fresh now, especially if you've never played the originals, they're actually a decent way to experience these classics. Are they perfect? Nah. Could they have been better? For sure. But are they actually good now? Yeah. I'd say they're at least in the pretty okay territory, which is a far cry from where they started. Next, Michael is most relatable protagonist. So Michael's whole deal is basically a midlife crisis simulator. Dude's stuck in witness protection, living in a fancy house with a family that can't stand him, going to therapy because he's miserable, even though he's made it. On paper, this middle-aged ex-criminal living in a mansion doesn't sound super relatable. But dig a bit deeper, and you'll find why this take has some weight to it. A lot of players connect with Michael because he represents something pretty universal. That feeling of, is this all there is? He's achieved the American dream on paper, but he's bored out of his mind. His kids are a mess. His wife's cheating on him. And he spends his days drinking by the pool, watching old movies. That existential crisis hits different, especially for older players or anyone who's ever wondered if they peaked too early. But when you compare him to other GTA protagonists, they're usually either up-and-coming criminals like CJ and Tommy Vercetti, or outsiders trying to make it like Nico Bellic. Michael's the first one who's already made it, and is still miserable. That's a different kind of relatable. It's not about the struggle to succeed. It's about what happens after you've supposedly succeeded. That said, calling him the most relatable is where this take gets debatable. Franklin's struggle as a young guy trying to escape his circumstances and make something of himself probably speaks more to younger players. Nico's immigrant experience and struggle with his past might hit harder for others. Even CJ's family loyalty and neighborhood ties might feel more real to some folks. I'd rate this take a 6 out of 10 on the hotness scale. It's not scorching because there's definitely a good chunk of players who feel this way, but it's still pretty spicy, because most people usually point to CJ or Nico as the most relatable protagonists. The thing about Michael is that his problems are very first world, you know? Like, yeah, being rich and miserable is still being miserable, but it hits different when you compare it to Nico trying to escape his war-torn past, or CJ trying to save his family and neighborhood. Michael's relatability comes from his emotional state rather than his circumstances, which makes this take more interesting than it might first appear. Really, it probably comes down to where you're at in your own life. If you're dealing with career and family stuff, questioning your life choices, or feeling stuck in a comfortable but unfulfilling situation, yeah, Michael's your guy. But if you're hustling to make it or dealing with bigger external struggles, other protagonists might speak to you more. And we are done. Now you tell me in the comments which GTA protagonists you personally connects most with and which don't. Also subscribe to the channel if you're really into GTA, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.